Begin transmission. This is a message from the anonymous charity, also known as The Collective. Today's broadcast date is November 23, 2019. We have all seen the child actors the elite parade around in fashion, TV, movies, music, media and political venues like the United Nations. Though we have exposed how the elite use poster children and adults, we wanted to discuss one Greta Thunberg today. Things are unfolding faster as the mind of the masses is being strangled into control. As the flood of propaganda rises, so does the level of agitation. Stress. The elite have been working for generations to bring the level of human frequency up to a strained and stressed point. This is evident today as minds can no longer function sanely, rationally, and the ability to process and perform tasks such as logic, common sense and responsibility have been successfully dampened. We have seen the increase of the elite's activities on the propaganda, educational front, and Greta is just the next elitist star being used to hypnotize the ignorant masses. So let us destroy the illusion. Greta Thunberg became famous after skipping school at 15 years of age, to strike at the Swedish parliament on August 20, 2018. As he told media outlets, Ingmar Rentzhog, founder of the social media platform We Have No Time, just happened to be passing by at that same time and posted a photo of her on his Facebook page which went viral. In November, more than 17,000 students in 24 countries took part in skipping school strikes. By December, Greta gave a speech at the United Nations Climate Change COP24 conference. February 2019, protests directly inspired by Greta occurred in more than 30 countries, from Sweden to Brazil, India and the United States. In March, the 16-year-old was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize as her following grew to more than 2 million people across 135 countries. In May, Times magazine named her as one of the world's most influential people and splattered her on the cover. By July, conservative lawmakers urge a boycott of Greta's appearance in French parliament. In August, Greta got busy punching back at those who could see through her propaganda. A few days after a Twitter war, about 450 Fridays for Future climate activists from 37 European countries gathered for a summit in Lausanne, Switzerland to discuss Greta's movement's development and work on international cooperation. A week later, Greta set sail from Britain to take part in a United Nations climate summit. Meanwhile, the number of climate strikers reached 3.6 million children across 169 countries. Before we continue with her fame timeline, let us take a moment to dig into this sailing expedition of hers. When Greta sailed for a couple of weeks, in August of 2019, from Plymouth, UK to New York City, USA, she did so in a 4 million, zero-carbon, yacht which is owned and piloted by the Rothschild Pierre Casiraghi, grandson of Prince Rainier and actress Grace Kelly. Flying a sail equipped with the motto, "Unite behind science. Elite science, deception." Greta made the pilgrimage without toilet or shower. It seems using the ocean for waste management is acceptable, or did she recycle and reuse? The supposedly eco-friendly voyage required 2 crew members to hop on a fuel-guzzling plane to New York to bring Thunberg's boat back to Europe, offsetting whatever was saved by Thunberg's trip. On top of that, skipper Boris Herman and Team Militia founder Pierre Casiraghi returned home after the trip on environmentally unfriendly planes to get back to Europe once the publicity stunt was over. It's of course not about emissions or management or anything whatsoever, besides money. It's always about the money. The whole thing is a joke. They laugh at you. You always fall for the same BS. Side note, that's why we, the anonymous charity known as The Collective, exist. To inform you. Even still, there was a big deal made about her mode of travel. As if the world was witnessing an ancient Hindu rite of coronation where the prospective leader is bathed with the sacred water collected from different seas, rivers and ponds. As the elite are always brimming with occult symbolism, let us take a look. In tarot, the boat commonly symbolizes one's responsibility to navigate through emotional tides. In other occult areas, the boat symbolizes a journey. It is also the femininity and sheltering aspect of the Great Mother aka Gaia, Diana, as we have discussed at length in previous works. It naturally also signifies the womb. As water and boat are always together in symbolism, they are a yin and yang. Water symbolizes emotion. Emotions are fluid, always changing and difficult to navigate without the proper vessel, as well as the source of life. Traveling by sea is symbolic of making the journey across life. The upside-down triangle represents the water element, representing the subconscious mind as well as a symbol of the feminine polarity. Aquarius, one of the many symbols used in the New Age movement, is symbolized by the water bearer. Cancer, Pisces and Scorpio are attributed to water as well. Given the recent media floods of migrants crossing by sea to invade other continents, the image itself is already programmed in the minds of the public to stick and have significant impact, making this event seem important. An interesting tidbit for some, in Druid rituals, asperge is when one is ritually sprinkled with water or salt water as a symbolic cleansing or blessing, traditionally done with an aspergillum or asperger bundle of sticks, made specifically for this purpose. Of course we see Greta constantly using the 666 hand gestures as well as the Lucifer SI symbolism. Yes, Greta, we had you renumber, you didn't need to give it to us. Along with her symbols and gestures, she has been given many titles as well. She has been dubbed the modern-day Che Guevara, a crusader, the Joan of Arc of climate change, Pippi Longstocking of climate change, Jesus' successor, guru of the apocalypse, and most accurately, patron saint of the age of stupidity. The public was also programmed for her through The Simpsons, as is the point of those shows. In 2007, the movie The Simpsons plotline was based on pollution and violations of the Environment Protection Act. Lisa Simpson, who had always been passionate about climate change and the environment, takes it upon herself to save Springfield from dying. Simpson did it. Her bratty scowl of disrespect for an elder and world leader. Simpson did it. Greta has become the instant leader of the global youth environmental movement called Fridays for Future, a sub-branch of a larger elite foundation. The original movement has been around since 2015, but it took them this long to mold their little spokeschild. She has been featured and interviewed in most of the world's leading media and lunched with the Financial Times. Pope Frankie, upon meeting with her, encouraged her to keep doing what you redoing. She has received many awards including the German Golden Camera Award as well as appeared on a panel with the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, addressed the European Parliament. She is already well on her way to filling up the classic elitist CV. On September 23, 2019 she wagged her finger, shaming adults at the United Nations Climate Action Summit. This has gone viral, leading to an even larger crusadership of indoctrinated and uneducated youth, following another Pied Piper. It is sad so many believe what comes out of these sorts of organizations and meetings. The world is a stage, and the scripts are written by the elite to keep you oblivious. Greta has been addressing and meeting with world leaders, who we all know are all controlled puppets themselves, who carry out the agendas the elite give to them. It is a charade they have done time and time again. The public actually believe these meetings have value and significance. It is all a staged farce and they laugh at you. Also in September, she filed a lawsuit against Argentina, Brazil, France, Germany, and Turkey for pollution. Putin has commented about Greta with his typical voice of logic, stating that we adults should be keeping children and teenagers out of extreme situations. We have exposed several of the spokespersons the UN has made viral, and they all follow the same shame on humans script, as well as the same elite-controlled background. Remember way back when the UN used puppet child, 15-year-old Nayirah, whose emotional speech was the green light for Bush to advance into the illegal war against Iraq. It didn't matter one bit that her testimony was found false. It never matters after the fact. No one pays attention that long. Nayirah was the daughter of Saad Nazir al-Sabah, Kuwait's ambassador to the USA. Then there was the same thing in 1992, 12-year-old Seven Cullis Suzuki, daughter of Canadian environmentalist, David Suzuki, talking to the UN about the environment. We could list off every single speaker ever to sludge up the United Nations podium, but that would be quite a bit of repetition. To think for one moment that anything coming from the mouths of these drones is coming from the person themselves, is preposterous to say the least. They are no different than the adult actors who perform at the UN, scripted and rehearsed. Actors affecting politics. The elite love to make it blindingly obvious to you, because even when the deceptions and lies are staring you in the face you don't see it. This mind-controlled child of today, Greta, is no more allowed to think, as she is allowed to talk without a memorized script. Clown actors. Disappointing that the concept is no longer understood. Distraction and programming, also known as divide and conquer. Another thing that makes identifying this insanity so easy is that these children are not producing ideas, or implementing changes, or doing anything significant. Her lack of understanding of what she is talking about is obvious in her interviews. Because of her, children across the world now regularly get out of school, education cancelled, so they could form protests and riots, helping to activate the chaos the elite need. Mindless militarism. The agenda is not to change education, to add knowledge to children so they will grow up to be aware, responsible adults, but to simply have an education-less day outside. Distraction. No one ever learns anything or changes anything from a protest. Nothing is accomplished from a movement. The problem is with education and lack of responsibility in living and technology and machines, unnatural tools that we use. If education were changed so children learned about emissions and harmful effects of the technology and unnatural elements they use and do, the action would be changed. But change is not what the elite want. They want you controlled and uneducated. The agenda is not for fixing the problem but creating one in your mind. Terror, unrest. So you will fall into the solution. Think about this: worldwide mind control of children and global child abuse. Justin Murphy tweeted that if Greta Thunberg guides global policy, then we cannot object to Jeffrey Epstein paying 16-year-olds for sex. Climate change is just another of the elite's games of fraud. Designed and implemented by the world's 130 largest banks, with total assets of $47 trillion, this is the best distraction from the global economic collapse. The banks are failing, because the only way the elite can keep them running is by implementing riots, looting and wars. We already know the reasons why, and how to fix it, but fixing the future is not part of the elite's plan. Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England, said to the UN Climate Action Summit on September 23 that the 130 top banks were working to channel all investment into speculative green sophism, while supporting the Paris Accord demand of shutting down a multitude of coal-fired power plants, dooming millions. This policy will shoot infant mortality up, which is good for the elite, and lifespans down, bonus number 2, in the developing world for lack of electricity. Climate change. The UN's IPCC plan calls for population reduction, argues economic growth shouldn't exceed 1%, among other things. Boiling down to the dissolution of human society and life. Sustainable, which to the elite means depopulated, enslaved, impoverished, worldwide total control. The elite continue chemtrailing, Project Cloverleaf, which causes radiation to be trapped. They increase technology and radio frequencies, which increases radiation, and much more we have previously discussed. It is the elite who made the contraptions that their corporations use to destroy the earth in so many various ways. Not the public. It is they who think of new ways to destroy. All of their damage would be eradicated if humanity would return to its pure and natural state. Humans are on this self-sustaining and self-healing earth with the ability to care for it by living off the land, not producing waste. Natural humanity works in a natural earth, naturally. But this is counterproductive to the elite's agenda to destroy it all and you. So they make drills to crack open the earth and drain it of what's obviously meant to be there. They spray chemicals and unnatural elements into the air and pollute the water and soil. The agenda of the elite is to pervert the earth, and everything in it, not to clean up their own mess. Corporations are the elite's fingers, sticking into every area of our lives now. We have allowed them to get so far. Still no one discusses a plan of action that will correct the situation by eliminating the elite infestation that is the disease killing the world. They point their fingers at you and say shame on you, it is your fault, when it has always been theirs. Greta is just another scripted outburst pushing the propaganda along. She is not there to address the real issues, nor any actual solution. If you are unable to discern the lies of the elite through the public mouthpiece spectacles, you read better off without them. And so are we. The elite are master manipulators. Liars. It is far easier to weave the web when a child is the messenger and claims to have a disability which is created by vaccines and other elite agendas. We have seen in many FFs before how children are used to sell the agenda, including the Chinese Cultural Revolution led to the deaths of 100 million people. Armies of children have been raised before by the elite, and as one would expect, the Lord of the Flies mindset is already programmed into them. Emotional manipulation. FF's delicate as someone with Greta's supposed conditions is world travel, political meetings, crowded spaces and noisy protests, and pretty much everything else she does goes against her well-being and mental health in every possible way. However, we know the elite must have the ability to shut down anyone who speaks against the special ones. Whether they are given the label of Jew or the label of mentally ill, it is all just a keyword, the favored terminology of the time. This creates the elite's favorite cover, perfect censorship and simultaneous indoctrination. Naturally, she has a band of online trolls to help silence all who speak out, such as one Alan Rusbridger, former editor of The Guardian, now a head of Oxford College, who deploys his prestige into pouring lofty scorn on those who dare tweet St. Greta's name in vain. As stated earlier, it is impossible to believe she is suffering from this extremely stressful difficulty. As anyone who actually has these issues can tell you, they force one to maintain a certain calm and stable lifestyle in order to cope and thrive. Australia's most high-profile psychologist, Michael Carr Gregg, has also voiced concerns, stating that Greta will likely burn out and potentially have a disastrous psychological outcome, like every other child star does. To quote him, "As a parent, if this was my child, I am not sure I'd be putting him on the world stage. It sends a message to other teenagers that they can speak to adults in this very, very dismissive way," end quote. "But the show must go on, and so must we. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day," Greta said when she addressed the world's leaders in Davos in January 2019. This, like all of her other statements, hold no wisdom or intelligence. Simply the message of the elite: fear is their power. They want you to fear. Instead of getting the help she desperately needs, this is her excuse to propagate paranoia. She traveled to Davos by train, in her typical protest. She spoke in several discussions, including the main lecture titled, "Preparing for Climate Disruption." When asked what her message for world leaders was, she replied, "My message is that we'll be watching you, profound. Inaction and nothingness. It's so laughable, it's exhausting to look into, but we must, because, if the elite keep repeating it, it will be believed as truth, because indoctrination leaves one with no will to look further. The elite need the ever-increasing protests which they always infiltrate and turn violent, in order to bring in the military powers and abilities to increase laws, that they make only for you to abide by, until at long last these disgustingly used and abused and twisted children, who are merely there to manipulate your emotions, to push negativity into your mind, will have helped to lead the children of today into the new world order of tomorrow. Adults have a moral obligation to remain adults in relation to children and not be carried away by emotions, icons, selfies, images of mass protests, or messianic or revolutionary delusions. That's what it means to be an adult. Are there any left? Let us not forget our history. The Children's Crusade of 1212 was led by Nicholas, an eloquent shepherd from Germany. After much public speaking, the young boy gathered up a large following which he led through Europe to Genoa, which was supposed to then lead him to Jerusalem. Apart from the many who left the march, 2 out of every 3 died on the way. When the remaining 7,000 finally made it to Genoa, Nicholas met with Pope Innocent III, who told the children to return home. Nicholas did not survive the second crossing of the Alps, and his father was arrested and hanged by angry families whose relatives had perished while following the child. The second Children's Crusade movement of that same year, during the same time, was led by a 12-year-old French shepherd boy named Stephen. We remember the importance of the shepherd, and that the elite often use this as the background story for those they use for public faces. This crusade was a double-sided movement, France and Germany. Both had the same script and agenda. Stephen came to fame after claiming to have a letter for the king from Jesus. After over 30,000 mostly juveniles and children had been amassed, Stephen led them through France on their way to Jerusalem. They survived by begging for food, though before they left France most of them had returned to their families. We will be able to witness how this modern-day cult of innocence grows. This time led by a girl with a long and tragic history of self-harm. History always repeats because the elite are always working on the same agenda. But I digress. Let us take a look at the ones who pull Greta's hostile little strings. What does the Club of Rome, the German Marshall Fund, We Don't Have Time, George Soros, Pope Francis, the Rothschilds, Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth and Plant for the Planet Foundation all have in common? They own Greta Tintin Eleonora Ernman Thunberg. So let's break it down. The Plant for the Planet Foundation is the foundation behind Fridays for Future movement. Both organizations share a German website, whose bank accounts lead to one Ronja Thane with an address to a cultural center named Alta Mu, in Kiel. Mrs. Thane does not seem to exist. Both are partnered with the Club of Rome, and the Global Marshall Plan, as well as the Avena Foundation, funded by the Rockefeller Foundation. Greta is involved with green lobbyists, PR hustlers, eco-academics, and a think tank founded by a wealthy ex-minister in Sweden's social democratic government with links to the country's energy companies. These companies are preparing for the biggest windfall of government contracts in history, the greening of the Western economies. Part of the 2030 Sustainable Smart Cities United Nations Plan, the UN has been working very hard for many decades to achieve the New World Order, and 2030 has always been the roadmap to it, whatever they rename it. But let us not stop there. Who pulls the strings of this puppet? Remember Greta's first big strike on Parliament? Let us continue with this passerby, Ingmar Rentzhog, of social media platform We Have No Time, who was trained by Al Gore's climate reality project. He had in fact planned to be at the strike, though he stated it was by chance he was there. He is on a mailing list from a climate activist named Bo Thoren, leader of the fossil-free Dalsland group. Thoren sent out an email a week before the strike, telling Ingmar all about it. Rentshog and Milena, Greta's mother, are also friends and had shared a stage at a conference called the Climate Parliament only months before. Independent journalist Rebecca Widemo Yuval obtained an earlier email from Bo Thoren's search for the next poster child. In February 2018, Thoren invited a group of environmental activists, academics and politicians to plan how we can involve and get help from young people to increase the pace of the transition to a sustainable society. Coincidentally, this was the time that Greta won an environmental op-ed writing competition and was instantly tapped by Thoren, who confronted her to strike, which is what she did. Thoren is the man behind the mouse. Who is behind him? Keep listening and reading these subtitles. This strike just so happened to coincide with the publication of scenes from The Heart, Svante and Milena's memoir of how saving the planet had saved their family. Timing is everything. Rentshog and his CEO David Olsson have backgrounds in finance, not environmental activism. Olsson is founder of Svenska Bostadsfonden, one of Sweden's biggest real estate funds. We don't have Time's investors included Gustaf Stenbeck, whose family control Kinnevik, one of Sweden's largest investment corporations. Rentshog is also the founder of Leica, an investment relations company, and on the board of Eras Christina Persson's Global Upmaning Global Challenge. She financially backs politician Olof Palme, is an ex-deputy governor of Sweden's central bank, a New Ager who openly discusses her reincarnations and communication with the dead. Persson also served as Minister for the Future in the Social Democratic government of Stefan Löfven. The other members of the board alongside Rentshog is Petter Skoga, president of Sweden's largest employers association, Johan Lindholm, chairman of the Union of Construction Workers and member of the Social Democrats Executive Board, Anders Wijkman, president of the Club of Rome, chair of the Environmental Objectives Council, and a recipient in February 2018 of Bo Thoren's call for youth mobilization. Katarina Nysted Ringborg, former CEO of Swedish Water, advisor at the International Energy Agency, and former vice president at Swedish-Swiss energy giant AB, is also a member. Greta served on We Have No Time's advisory board between November 2018 and January 2019, and Milena Ernman's signature can be seen on a letter with 4 Global Challenge board members. Many of Greta's speeches can be found to mirror Anders Wijkman's Club of Rome speeches. Another one of Greta's speechwriters is climate change professor Kevin Anderson. Jim Stone reports that Swedish authorities showed up at Greta's parents' house and have launched a child abuse investigation. Greta's mother, Sarah Milena Ernman, is a long-time European celebrity opera soprano and author. Svante Fritz Wilhelm Ernman Thunberg is also no newbie to the Hollywood life the family has always led. He is, among other things, a talent agent and managing director of the media company Erman Production AB. With all of the training she gets from her parents as well as her PR manager Rentshog, it is no wonder that Greta is so well rehearsed and almost a decent actress. Keep practicing. Svante's father, Fritz Olof Thunberg, was also in theatre and radio. Greta actor Svante Arrhenius is one of Greta's relatives and was the founder of the global warming scam. He was given the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1903, becoming the first Swedish Nobel laureate. He was colleague of Alfred Nobel, Russian Rockefeller, and became the director of the Nobel Institute. Greta Thunberg. He has been memorialized not only in his book, but by the Arrhenius equation, Arrhenius acid, lunar and Martian craters both named Arrhenius. We have mentioned before how the elite have no imagination, the mountain of Arrhenius Fjället, and the Arrhenius Labs at Stockholm University. He was a board member for the Swedish Society for Racial Hygiene and a eugenicist. His children and grandchildren went on to expand the sustainable development planning and practice. The Thunbergs are also a long-standing family in the Swedish Freemason cult. Named in an old Bavarian Illuminati book, was a natural philosopher, social engineer, from Uppsala who was acquainted with its founder, Adam Weishaupt. Greta's parents are responsible for encouraging and producing this spoiled brat and her irrationality. Her mother tells reporters that Greta can see carbon dioxide, a colorless, naturally occurring trace gas already in the atmosphere. Of course, she has not been challenged to prove her superhuman cyborg vision, nor her medical diagnosis, and she can be challenged to prove a point because she hasn't made one yet. The sustainability queen is far from sustainable. Greta has been pictured wearing pro-Antifa clothing and raising money for Antifa causes in Europe, Charlie Kirk states when discussing photos of the entire family wearing their matching Antifa shirts. Greta was also pictured in the same shirt as she recorded a song with the band, the 1975. She tweeted that all revenue from the recording will go to the extreme left environmental organization, Extinction Rebellion. In her song she states that all solutions to the climate crisis have failed. So if they have already failed before they even began, what's her problem? It's not about making sense, it's about emotion, not mind. The Swedish section of Extinction Rebellion is led by Antifa hero Jonathan Pie, who was sentenced to 4 years in prison for his involvement in the Gothenburg riots of 2001. If I commit acts of violence, it is like a game of chess. Then I think coldly and tactically, Pie said in an interview. Every time Greta performs in Germany, she is accompanied by her Soros-provided handler, Luisa Marie Neubauer, who guides and shields her from journalists who ask the wrong questions. Neubauer is from Hamburg, and works for One Foundation, which is funded by the Bank of America, Coca-Cola, SAP, Google. The One Foundation was created in the 2000s by George Soros, Bill Gates and Bono, to better inform Americans about extreme poverty around the world. The parent company was an anti-poverty advocacy organization called Data, which used celebrities to bend the focus of world leaders, classic MK Ultra techniques. They always match up stars with leaders, Marilyn Monroe and JFK. Neubauer was personally recruited to be part of One, and has since recruited Greta. Neubauer is also a member of the Greens and receives a stipend from the Heinrich Böll Foundation. In addition, Neubauer is a youth ambassador for the American lobby organization One, and is campaigning professionally. The United Nations is a major propaganda machine for the elites, carrying out the same FF's, child trafficking and mind control techniques, continuing to control the agenda. The agenda being to make the world believe that humans, being you, not the elite who create and force destruction upon us, are the problem. They want you to believe that humans, not the elite's technology and agendas which are specifically designed to create heat, throw off the Earth's natural processes, distort natural weather patterns and control what used to be called natural events, have created the malfunctions we face today. Greta is an ignorant puppet who needs to be put in a time-out. She is nothing more than an out-of-control spoiled child who will continue to be locked in the MK program she has been in since birth, just like all of the elite puppets are. The elites created heat is what they call global warming, climate change. It is not a natural process, and as such, can be prevented and stopped, like all other elite-made problems. Do not be deceived. This has been a message from the anonymous charity, also known as The Collective, broadcasting as George. Today's date is Saturday, November 23, 2019. End of transmission.